old age, I'd like to think that life's less stressful.
I suppose early retirement's where you have more time for yourself.
Scary, I think. I'm quite scared of it.
Just enjoying life, not having to worry about work or people.
By the time I'm 70, provided I'm still, fit and healthy, that'll probably still be working.
I don't think I can wait till the state pension age for me, which is now 68.
And I don't want to be scrimping, scraping. Can I turn the heating? Can I not turn the heating on? Will I be able to eat? Oh, is the boiler going to go?
I'll be quite keen to do as much work as possible since, I'll have brought the kids to an age where they can kind of thrive without me, I hope.
Well, actually, I like work, and I've always liked work, and the thought of giving it up is actually quite weird.
A lot of people say that retirement is the biggest killer in old age because some people who've been so work focused simply don't know what else to do with their time.
Retirement isn't necessarily like a straight line. Like both of my grandparents have continued to work.
It's sort of like a retired gap year. Having watched my children do gap years, we didn't really have the opportunity.
I don't like how we associate aging with being idle and not doing anything. I don't see myself not doing anything. I might as well not be here.
My partner and myself's plan is to eventually go to some sunnier climes.
I've got family who live abroad, so I've got the option to sort of travel.
I think I'd much rather be able to get out and kind of stay away from kind of large crowds for a little bit.
I love London, and it'd be nice to, actually have more time to do more stuff in London.
This group of aging women have all bought houses in proximity to each other, and they've created their own little community to look out for each other.
My daughter's trying to get me up to Somerset, and I'm trying not to be up there for as long as I can.
Having a network and friends around me is more important than the geography.
As we go, life will probably get easier because technology is helping us in so many different ways.
True AI will be a thing then, and it won't be just something that's in science fiction novels.
I admire technology, I trust technology up to a certain point.
There are obviously concerns about security and how much data these companies collect.
Generally speaking, I'm an analogue girl, so I'd rather have a pencil and a piece of paper.
It does scare me slightly. I don't want to be on a hoverboard at 80 years old, do you know what I mean?
There's good and bad. I guess it's a question of, guarding your exposure.
I don't want everything to be done for me and me just breathe. It doesn't feel right.
I think as you get older, it becomes harder to keep up.
But luckily my husband, assuming he's still around, he's pretty up on all of these things.
Older people need to be given a lot more training around it.
Probably that age where you're familiar enough with it that it can be helpful.
In a slightly non-feminist, pathetic fashion, have to rely on him for that.
Free classes at local community centres.
The pace of change, I guess it always seems, accelerated in the moment.
If anything, it's just gone to solidify what I already thought I wanted to do.
It makes you question if you're in the right job. It makes you question if it's the right career path that you want to go down.
COVID especially has affected ethnic minorities more. And the statistics, especially diabetes, especially from my background.
In other respects, the things that we like to do is being outdoors, it's walking, hiking, so in some ways the pandemic hasn't stopped us doing that.
Before the pandemic, everywhere felt relatively close. If you could afford a plane ticket, you can go pretty much anywhere. And now it's that uncertainty, and that even though we have technology and that did help this past 2 years, we also realise that it's not enough, and you want to actually be able to see each other and have security in being in the same country.
As we all know, there's an increasing number of people with mental health concerns internationally, and a lot of people with neurological conditions which don't have any services to support them post having medication and a diagnosis. We basically know that the arts make a massive difference. I've seen it firsthand myself with my grandmother. I used to play the organ with her. I've seen it firsthand with my dad doing art with his mental health condition. Everyone's got a part of creativity in them. And we understand what it is that's unique to them. What we've done is taken an already established clinical therapy that works with people with dementia, and we've embedded it in a programme of artistic creative nature to help people to improve those areas or maintain them at the level that they're at. And it's a non-drug treatment, so that's even better, and it's complementary to what the NHS are offering. We can support them to improve their vocabulary and their language, and I suppose express themselves through different forms if they've lost their ability to communicate with family members, help them to feel more empowered, confident. It can help in a number of ways. It just really boils down to the individual.
Whilst specialist mental health services are essential for a lot of people, if you look nationally at the average amount of time a CPN nurse spends with one of their patients on their caseload, it's not a large amount of time. The work that Unforgettable Experience has done is based on a scientific, empirical basis, not just in terms of people's well-being, but also in terms of people's functioning as well.
We were really excited to receive the Innovate UK funding because ultimately we had this amazing vision and concept, but we hadn't had the ability to pilot it. So the money from Innovate gave us the ability to design, develop and pilot the solution with a load of health professionals. We did an independent evaluation of the pilot and we got a 20% improvement in wellbeing, memory and quality of life.
Seaside moonshine, walk along prom, moon shine on waves, blue and bright, sun and moon gives off calm.
It's opened up a side to her that certainly I'd never seen. Some of the things that she's written are very creative. I didn't know she had that depth of creativity to her. She does her class and it's wonderful what I hear in class, but then she refers to it through the week, and if we're doing something she's actually saying things like, oh, I could write about this. It's challenging her, it's making her think, which is great.
One of my favourite examples of how we've seen this service make a difference was a gentleman that had never played his piano for 3 years, and his daughter thought it might help him after the loss of his wife with his dementia. He'd loved it that much, he'd actually gone to play his piano for the first time, and he'd remembered the musical content from the session by memory. I'd like Unforgettable Experiences service to be embedded into the clinical pathways to help people with cognitive impairments across the UK, not just NHS England. I think the world's oyster, really.
Peoplehood is Blackwood's project for healthy ageing to help people to live an additional healthy 5 years. We're in Charleston today, in Dundee, but we're also working in Cardonald in Glasgow and Buckie up on the Murray coast, so all 3 Scottish neighbourhoods to try and help people in these neighbourhoods just live healthier for longer.
It's really important for us to test with the people in the neighbourhood what it is that's going to help people live more productively for longer, and that's testing products, services and creating a model that will allow people in Scotland and across the UK and hopefully across Europe as well to thrive as they age.
So we're looking at a model demonstrator house. So this house has got a central bathroom that's a wet floor bathroom. We've also got 2 bedrooms, we've got a large living space.
One of the biggest challenges that wheelchair users face with cooking their own meals in their kitchen is getting access to storage space. So we have made it that the cupboards rise and fall down so they can bring them down to the right height. So this is Clever Cogs, and this is the interface that our customers use. So it lets them interact with us as their housing and care provider, but also lets us deliver some of our services through it. So you don't have to have had any experience of using technology or the internet. It's just super easy to click through a series of tiles.
Being disabled and moving house is a big event. These houses would be absolutely perfect. You could grow old in them.
This is just a little bit of a mock-up of a golf course that we're going to be doing. We hope that people will improve and sustain their physical activity through golf and through games that are associated with that as well. We're exceptionally grateful to UKRI for the investment that they are helping us with. Without that level of investment, it wouldn't be possible to run programmes where you can combine those products and services and create a model. And it allows a housing association like Blackwood to partner with some people in the industry that we maybe never would have.
We wouldn't all be speaking to each other. There wouldn't be necessarily the same drive and the impetus to really engage and say, right, what can you offer? What can I offer? What are you looking for? How can we work together to kind of get you the data that proves the surrogate driver scheme is a great idea, or the Blackwood house could be scaled and could be done commercially rather than for social housing.
And that should take hopefully Blackwood into a new commercial position, the partners into a new commercial position, but ultimately the people of Charleston and the neighbourhoods into living more productively for the remainder of their years.
The last 18 months has shown us that we do need local high streets, we do need local communities.
And it's always familiar faces, either if you're passing, you wave, or you go inside, you know they'll know you and they'll greet you nicely.
Just walking, just going shopping or walking in a shopping area is exercise.
I think if the high street here maybe had a few more seats or something for folk to sit on.
There are some local shops that are not chains, which is very good. There are 1 or 2 chains creeping in.
There's very few independent stores, which is a shame. I would love that. I remember places like Chester and Shrewsbury used to have a lot of independent stores.
Yeah, I was disappointed when they closed down the pub and turned into a Nando's. And I think the pub is always a nice place.
A lot of businesses have gone down, which is obviously of worry to me.
If the government would give small independent retailers more chance, more of a leg up, more leniency, the high street would begin to flourish again.
If there wasn't a high street and I lived in, the outskirts, there would be a difficulty. So having the high street nearby is very good. You're never lost. In ageing, if one needs anyone to shop or help, it's not like a big ask.
And because it's not always convenient to go by public transport, you sometimes need a car if you're doing a big shop, for example. And that's okay if you're going to a supermarket, but if you want to go to some of the local shops, it's maybe not quite so easy.
I have this sort of vague memory of living beside a baker's shop and walking past it in the morning and the smell of fresh bread, But I'm probably living in utopia talking about that.
We're really interested in increasing participation in arts and cultural activities in order to increase social connectivity for older people, and particularly older people who are disabled socioeconomically and racially minoritized in society. And we're working with them throughout the project to co-design innovative products, services, performances alongside creative industries, creative technologists, artists and others. So the older people themselves are at the centre of that design process, and I think that's the innovation, and that's the thing that we want to find out more about and hopefully offer some guidance to other people. We think that we will have national and hopefully international impacts as well from this project, because everyone is looking for alternative ways of doing digital innovation for older people, because it is obvious that what's happening at the moment is not really working.
Today we were running a session that we called Mapping Connections. So we've done a lot of work on this project with participants, talking to them about how they define culture and cultural participation really broadly. Can we design or organise cultural experiences, whether that's digital or in person, to bring people together and foster nourishing senses of togetherness?
There is a very strong danger as you get older that you become more reclusive. You only really want to deal with the familiar, and anything that helps older people re-engage in whatever way, I think it improves your health, both mentally and physically, that you're engaged in some sort of creative activity.
Technologies often are designed by young white men in labs who really don't know anything about older people, and they certainly know very little about older people who don't fit into mainstream representations. So the people we're working with are disabled, socioeconomically and racially minoritized. Those are not the kind of people that are usually involved in design processes. It it's a research project, and in order to be able to do a 3-year research project of this scale, we need substantial funding. And so the UKRI Social Behavioural Design project funding has just enabled us to do the project and to do it really well and very ethically as well, because the funding has allowed us to provide the kind of support we need for the co-researchers and for other partner organisations to get involved.
In the Northwest, we have some of the lowest figures around all sorts of different markers of health. We do have an ageing population, and we do have wide inequality regarding that ageing. The aspiration to age into your 80s and 90s isn't necessarily there in certain communities.
We'd have to get 24,000 people over 50 back into work just to be at the UK average, because that's how many people that we lose per year, and that's largely as a result of poor mental health and physical health. This is a key and critical priority for Lancashire.
You've got the 40 to 74-year-old health checks, which you're supposed to undertake once every 5 years, usually in a GP setting. However, the literature shows us that in Lancashire, I think their best year out of about 70,000 checks was 35,000.
Active Lancashire is a charity. We're part of the Sport England family. We're all about getting people physically active and engaged in sporting lifestyles. So the innovation really is bringing in prevention. We're bringing it directly into the workplace. This happens in the work environment. We're targeting people who are employed by SMEs, who are traditionally not as well supported by their employer. We've got people who've been trained up from leisure providers, in effect, the people who are working down at your local leisure centre. We've trained them up to do health checks. They're going into the workplace with the support of their employers. They're engaging with employees, and then they're looking at options as well. How do we make those small differences?
This is the first time that we've done anything like this through the programme that Active Lancs are offering us. So it's been a really great experience so far, very easy. Throughout the whole of the UK, more people are employed in SMEs than they are in the larger corporations. So it's great that we're now able to target more of the population with programmes like this. And it's really important that the government does support small businesses to help their staff.
For Lancashire, the dial and the expectation around health within Lancashire itself has not moved for 20 years in spite of a whole host of government initiatives. So the UKRI funding has just been fantastic.
The funding's actually covered the vast majority of the project.
It's really important that Lancashire as a whole really works hard to upskill its workforce and enable everybody of all ages to get into the workplace and perform a good job.
Remaining active in the workplace is absolutely critical to people's quality of life on a financial level, on an emotional level, and critically in terms of the relationships that people enjoy within later life, their sense of identity, their sense of being. So this project is absolutely critical to be able to sustain that and support individuals, but individuals across our community to enjoy a higher quality of life as they age.
I can't imagine full retirement. I don't think I'll always find something to do.
Some of my colleagues are like 93 years old.
I volunteered from 1960 onwards in some aspect. Like everything, one gets back more than one puts in.
The difficulty I had was that my wife died very suddenly, and that was about 9 years ago. So to cope with that, then the only way I could think about, well, what do I do while I work?
You know, doing that through my life has helped me to deal with personal issues.
I think I've definitely lost a little bit of my confidence.
I shouldn't be forced to work, but I should work in an environment where I feel comfortable, where I will be able to share my experiences and make a difference.
But like working in the NHS all my life, then things started to become quite repetitive, and what was seen as new ideas and new ways of working and new ways of providing services might be, it was emperor's new clothes. Oh gosh, we tried that 10, 20 years ago.
When you're younger, you don't know about unknown unknowns. You take everything on a best case scenario. When you make projections, you don't know what could go wrong.
Older people are not respected or valued.
Now I really think thoroughly of what might happen, what could happen. Is that the best possible decision that I made? How do I contribute to the team in which I'm based in?
My outlook was very young. I used to dress up nice for work, and I could use the same lingo as them. So they never suspected anything, and I didn't ever tell them my true age.
With each employment that I did, there came a point when I knew it was time within myself that it was either wasn't challenging or I passed my sell-by date with it.
But sometimes experience doesn't meet the future, so in a way it's maybe the need not so much for what older people bring, but what an intergenerational connection between older and young, which hasn't been happening, that now can happen. That could add quite a bit of value to the workplace.
The SPACE project, so that stands for Supportive Environments for Physical and Social Activity, Healthy Ageing and Cognitive Health. And it's really all about how where we live and how we live can promote better brain health. So one of the particular innovations of this project is taking what we call a systems science lens to it. So that is looking not just at one particular factor such as air quality, but a number of different factors and what those interactions are.
We have two devices here which we set up for the participants. The first one being a GPS tracker and the second one being what we call an accelerometer. We can use those two sets of data, we can almost merge them together to find out whether people are doing physical activity in a green space or an urban space. And then we can then use the data we have from the cognitive assessments to try and find links between the two.
So essentially my team's role in the SPACE project is to explore how those environmental stressors really get under the skin. We're particularly interested in looking at epigenetics, so really teasing out the explanation between what people inherit from their parents and what the environmental stressors are.
I'm responsible for work package 2, which is really linking environmental data to the NICLA longitudinal data set.
It's really important to have the lived experience there, and I think that's one of the key parts of the research. The Queens are very keen to have the voice of all stakeholders, but particularly older people, so that we can align what the evidence is saying to the experience of people here in Belfast.
We aim to have academic publications, of course, but ultimately it's much better to be able to impact upon policy. So if we can show impact from our research that interacting well with your environment promotes brain and cognitive health, then we would hope to be able to implement that in policy.
All good research is based on what has come before, what are the needs, what are the gaps, and it was those gaps and opportunities that allowed us to really develop the SPACE project.
The population is ageing, but it's more important to add quality to extra years rather than to have sickness in the last years of your life.
Really critical to have money available for this sort of research because it's what's providing the evidence base for future urban planning.
This project wouldn't have been possible without the funding from the UKRI Healthy Ageing Challenge. It's really been fundamental to allow us to put together this ambitious 3-year programme of work.
So both my parents
struggled with the home that they lived in. Being an architect, it was quite handy because I could kind of make some reasonable adjustments to the home. Seeing it, I suppose, in what researchers call in an ethnographic way, like lived experience, it starts to really bring home how poorly designed lots of houses are in the UK. The name of the project's Flexible Homes, and we're trying to build flexibility into the housing design. We build houses in the UK which are static objects, and we want to be able to make adjustments internally to suit people as they age, to make the house like a supportive environment for older people so that carers and family members can be able to monitor how the home's performing. I think where the innovation is in asking older people what they actually want and what works for them, and then trying to find a design solution to enable that to happen. These houses are closed down at the front. There's no connectivity between older people inside the home and outside. Something that everybody was animated about was the opportunity to open the homes up to the front. If we had a terrace, where people could go and sit outside and read a book, you can engage with a neighbour.
At the heart of good gerontological nursing, it's about improving that quality of life either through preventative care or through interventions. And this particular approach, where we look at good housing, can enable people to age well, and secondly address some of those sort of issues that we know sort of really costly, so the individual doesn't have to move to a care service to receive care. Care can be wrapped around the individual at home.
So in this example, we're just showing turning lights on and off, and that's just to demonstrate a concept that remotely you can control things within the home.
So these little pockets of money that are distributed by UKRI are vital to get this inquiry going around what people actually need. If I'm honest, I think there should be more money dedicated to these issues.
We can't afford to provide individual care packages for everybody's specific nuanced needs. So having funding to support research like this means that we can produce solutions that enable people to help themselves, basically. So there's less cost on the taxpayer.
You have to adapt to getting older. I think it's something that doesn't maybe come easy to some people. It does concern me that I might not be able to stay in my home. I've got stairs that I've got to go up. I've got a very bad bus service where I live. And again, I haven't got a walk-in shower. So as I get older, I'm going to have to adjust to the fact that I might need to move into a ground floor flat.
We already have a handrail put on our staircase. I think it's very good. And adaptations to stay in your home, I think, is vitally important.
However ill we get, we don't want to be in hospital. We want to be able to be looked after at home.
I can't see any reason why I would give it up unless I go see now.
I've been there too long now, and like my father said, the only way I'm going out here is feet first.
My husband has at long last agreed to take the bath out and put in a sitting shower.
I can get in the bath and sit down. Then it takes me an hour and a half to get back out again. Like a stranded wow.
It's been more important now I left work, and since the pandemic realised that you need to get out and about.
Oh, it's really very important. Yeah, I mean,
nobody copes well being on their own.
No. We had my dad live with us last year, and he died. And I have to say that if it wasn't for our community in the church, I don't know how we would have coped.
It's very important for your community to serve you as best as they can, because you become more restricted with movement, getting on buses, getting off buses.
We're quite close to the university, and the university have a very good bus service. But it doesn't take me to the places. It couldn't bring me across here.
There's not a lot going on for the so-called elderly. There could be more.
So for you, if you were told you would have to leave your community to age, that would be quite hard?
I would definitely not want to. No. I don't want to get old anyway.
In simple terms, the problem is loneliness and isolation. Somebody who's chronically lonely, chronically isolated, that leaves an indelible imprint on their life chances, on their outcomes, and we see the results of this every day in the communities that we work in. That problem multiplied across a whole society becomes a big challenge for public services. The face-to-face services we provide are excellent. The interventions we make are important ones. What is the role for technology supplementing those face-to-face services?
Home care is a patented smart home solution that runs on the Echo Show. So it's multimodal. It can be interacted with using kind of voice and touch. They help reinforce routine, help connect them with like-minded individuals, give them something to do, and kind of really create a sort of sense of purpose.
I've been working with 5 residents here at Collated, supporting them to set up their Alexa devices. We've been able to test it on a son who cares for his dad, and they've both been testing the device. For these residents, it means that the son has that peace of mind that he can check on his dad at any time of the day. He knows that he can help his dad set up a routine to make sure that he's attending appointments that are really important or taking his meds.
I'm Emma. And I work here as a PA, so I only work with Liz. Voice activation for Liz is great because obviously her mobility is very, very low.
She listens better, doesn't she?
Yeah, until I tell her off.
If I'm off on annual leave or I'm away from Liz, I can check the calendar and see if there's anything important coming up and remind her maybe.
One of the main challenges on working on this project has been overcoming some of the practical issues around getting the devices into people's homes. So digital literacy and digital exclusion is an issue that affects older people more, and particularly people on lower incomes. This is something we've co-produced with our customers, so we've listened to what their needs are and we've worked with them to develop a solution that will work for them in their lives.
We've worked with kind of different organisations, including the NHS and Swansea University, to start developing home care. But the funding from UKRI is really kind of helping us to scale.
This funding has allowed us to take a concept which we've proven to becoming a more mature product which is ready to take out to market and to scale.
We've got the links into the community so we can provide that access to a kind of living laboratory, if you like, and what a partner like Accenture brings is that technological know-how. But I think any stool needs 3 legs to stand up, and that 3rd leg of the stool for us was government coming in via Innovate UK and Design for Ageing to kind of pool the risks with us, because the rewards are society-wide.
The challenges that the social care sector face at the moment are immense, and it's only through innovation that we will find the solutions that we need.
People who have anxiety, which manifests itself in the form of phobias, they're looking for a solution to that, and that traditionally has been cognitive behavioural therapy, which can work but often doesn't. So what we've done is we've combined traditional CBT, although modified slightly, alongside something technical, which is virtual reality. So instead of just talking about how you would cope in the real world, we're showing them the real world at the same time.
With cognitive behavioural therapy, it takes anywhere between 10 to 20 weeks to feel any effect to it. And at the moment, with the way things are due to the pandemic, you're probably waiting about 9 to 12 months for an actual referral to even get into the service in the first place. The way that we work is that we have a treatment programme that is only 4 sessions long. We can get someone treated within 2 to 4 weeks. So it really speeds up that process.
What was done in the research showed it to be at least 50% effective. So potentially you're going from like 1 or 2% to 50%. We created the spin-out company, which was about 18 months ago now. and developed new hardware and new software to take it to the next level.
It basically came from a question and an issue that arose around children with autism and adults with autism accessing traditional forms of mental health services. We really wanted to develop the technology a bit further and see if we could apply it to the neurotypical population, but also see if we could use it with the ageing population as well to really help them overcome issues like social isolation, get them out and moving, get them back to work.
Obviously the benefits for those individuals who go through the treatment, it can change their life. So the Healthy Aging Fund and the challenge was a real big opportunity for us.
The project's helped us massively. Like, we've already been able to, get new members of staff in. We've been able to completely scale up what we were doing. Before we started this project, we didn't even have a studio in place. We didn't even have a hardware supplier.
It had also allowed us to get additional funding from venture capitalists and from business angels.
It's enabled us to speed up some of the research in using the likes of AI and applying that to intelligent avatars, so that when we've got a scene which involves a lot of virtual people, they can kind of behave and react and follow the eyesight of the patient.
What we hope to do in 5 years' time is to be in at least 11% of all NHS trusts, but also have sites across the UK in private settings, but also across the world. And we hope that that'll get us to a 30 million turnover business within 5 years.